welcome to the fourth episode of the Delora Dabbles podcast. I did a lot of dyeing over the weekend, so I have some goodies to show you. I'm going to show you some old dyes just to kind of talk about why I like the dyeing process that I like best, why that's my favorite. So this is kettle dyeing. This is, you throw your colors in the kettle and you see how they all go together, and it's just it's very unpredictable. This is a much prettier braid. It's very unpredictable, so it's not ideal for me all the time. I do like how this one turned out. It wasn't what I was going for, but every time I kettle dye, I usually get a surprise, mostly pleasant, sometimes not pleasant, but this is kettle dyeing. This was dyed, and these are both merino, so they're super nice and soft. This one I dyed in the oven. And as you can see, my dyes pretty much stayed where I stuck them. So that level of control is what I like. Anytime you're dyeing something, you're going to get some muddling between the colors. That's just going to happen. So when I don't want muddling between the colors, I will put them on a rack in the pan in the oven and do it all like that, and that's what I used in my project In Depth for my Rolags. So anytime I'm blending pure colors into my Rolags, that's what I do. So I'm going to put these to the side down here and talk about them later. My dyeing that I did this weekend, all the rest of this is this weekend. So I'm going to start off with my pretty gradient, the gradient that I really liked, how it turned out. It's my favorite that came out of this. This is all my Cheviot, so I don't usually, I've never really done gradients before. I'll be honest with you guys, not doing a gradient on the finished roving. I've done some gradient Rolags, but not trying to get it all in one roving. So I'm pretty proud of this. Because I got the Cheviot for free because Paradise Fibers messed up and they just comped it to me, I was able to give myself permission to do crazy stuff with it, and I'm very, very happy that I did. So this is gray, just pure gray. This is Kelly green with gray, and this is just a lighter version of this. This is this diluted, basically, with a little bit more gray, I think. And it muddled really nicely, I think, and I am super proud of this one. This one was super sweet and awesome. These braids are pretty long because I did 120 gram increments, and I really enjoyed that. I heard a lot of spinners say that 120 increments really opens up what they can do with their hand spun versus if they just did 100. So that's what I did with most of these. This is another 120 gram. This one didn't come out so much as expected. I was really hoping that the fuchsia would be more toned down because I put gray in it. And I didn't do it for this one either, but when I mix dry dyes, and if you really want them to mix properly, you want to, when you mix your dyes with hot water, you let them sit and bring them back to room temperature, and then you use them if you're mixing two dries. I haven't been doing it with any of my other colors because most of the colors I use, they blend very beautifully with the gray. The fuchsia, not so much. The fuchsia wanted to turn purple. So next time I blend the fuchsia, I'm actually going to do some swatching, and I'm going to try to blend the fuchsia with black instead. But because the black and the gray are purple based, that's why you get the fuchsia turning purple in places, because I didn't let the two dry dyes, once mixed with hot water, cool together, they split very easily. The fuchsia wants to take to the wool at a slower rate than the gray does. So the gray got in first, and then basically the fuchsia came in after and turned the gray much more purple than it usually is. I feel like if I had let them cool first, it would have turned out a lot better. The salmon takes to the gray very well. Very well. And of course, just plain gray is always going to be really great. I don't have any white spots really in my gray. But you can see that I have tons of white spots in the rest of my braid. I didn't flip my braid when I low immersion dyed it in my pan. I was really just having fun, and I wasn't thinking to be super professional. I don't mind that it happened in this one at all. In fact, like, all of my Cheviot is just for funsies. So this is all just for funsies. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to leave this like this and spin it, or if I'm going to turn these into rollags. Do rollag stuff with them. I don't know yet. I'm thinking I'm actually going to rollag that one. Now, this one was very similar to the one that I just showed you with the merino, but I decided to do it in a more gradient style. And I have the white spots again. Not as bad, but more consistently throughout, I think the white spots are. But still, that was not intentional at all. I should have flipped this and dyed it some more. When I flip it and dye it some more, I'm kind of over dyeing it. I'm not just spot dyeing where it's white. I'm just over dyeing the whole thing. Because I'm afraid that if I have white spot on the underside, I've got white on the inside. Funny thing is that I don't actually have white on the inside. It's just on the very bottom. This one kind of goes inside a little bit more, but mostly just on the top. And this white spot, I'm thinking, goes in fairly deep. Only about halfway through. So my white spots aren't actually as deep as they look like they could be, but I could have just spot dyed this some more. I'm not worried about it though. This is for fun. I might put this through the blending board and break off the gray from the periwinkle that turned navy to the lilac to the blue to the turquoise. Just blend them all up and then spin it into a gradient. I don't know, or do really, really short repeats. I don't know yet. I'm gonna play with the blending board later. The other Cheviot gradient and the last Cheviot gradient. This is only 100 grams, so it's not 120 like the others. It's a little bit shorter. So, a little bit shorter. This one was a bit crazy, but also basic. I feel like this is an extremely popular gradient, but I wanted one with my own flair to it. So I muted the red and the orange with gray to get the colors down really well. And I left the yellow alone because I didn't want to mute the yellow with gray because I didn't want to know what purple was going to do to the yellow. Now that I'm thinking of it, I think the best way to mute yellow would be to put a little orange in it so that it will, or maybe a little russet, just a teensy bit of the russet red. But I don't want to make the yellow orange, so I'm thinking I might do it with the orange. That's what I'm actually going to swatch later. I'm going to swatch that later. I did some Corriedale, and one of my Corriedales fell. These are for Rolag. So these I dyed. I did not low immersion dye this one like I did all of the rest in my lap. These were all done on the rack in the oven, hand painted. I love hand painting my roving. I really do. This Corriedale is actually really, really soft. Even after dyeing it, it's so deliciously soft. I love the gray, how the gray looks on this Corriedale. And these are nylon blends again. I need to order more nylon at some point, not anytime soon though, because I've got quite enough to spin, as you can see. So these are going to go together. These are going to be blended together. And then I have lilac-y gray nylon with, I love this mauve. This is my favorite mauve that I have done so far at all, like top favorite. except for the mauve on the alpaca. I feel like the alpaca itself like dulled my dye to make it the perfect mauve. This is more like the way the alpaca looked than like the merino wool looked, so I did it good. This was the perfect ratio of gray and salmon. These are going to look so good together. I really want to heather this in really well, so I'm probably going to put it through my blending board, not roll-lag it, just kind of pull it as I'm lifting it off the board and then re-blend it a couple times. That's the closest I can come to blending with my tools that I have. But as you can see, I have twice as much of the pink as I do of the gray, because I'm going to design a crepe yarn with this. So the gray is going to be the crepe ply, and this is going to be the double ply, and I do believe I'm going to double ply it. I don't think I'm going to Navajo ply it like I did the others, or just traditional 3-ply. I don't see myself traditional 3-plying it. Definitely see myself double plying it. Yep. And before I go into anything else about the rest, into the next segment of my podcast, I want to talk about fractal spinning something. So my Tornado Skies spin, the roll-lags, and then the finished piece that I showed you guys last month. I will try to put a picture in for you guys because that was a great picture I took. It's bald now, so it's not going to look as great. You're not going to see everything like you do in a skein. It looks like it was fractal spun. What it was that when I spun the two balls of 50-gram increments, I spun them opposite. So I didn't try to keep the black and the grays and the greens together. I just spun it totally opposite. This fractal spin would be a true fractal spin. That one just kind of looks fractal, but it's totally not. Fractal is very specific in that you split your rovings or you get a set, but you're basically spinning smaller amounts of the same dye pattern in one ball and larger amounts of the same dye pattern in the other ball. You can do this with 3 plies. You can do this with as many plies as you want. Most people do it in 2 plies, and a lot of people do it. They'll spin half of the roving, and then they'll split the other half in half again, and then spin this one, and that's what I'm doing. You can see that this color pattern does an exact mirror image almost. So it will be a fun spin. We will see how it turns out. Because it's merino, it's going to be very, very nice. I can't wait to see how it goes. If I decide to use it for socks, I'm probably going to crepe it with a neutral. I will probably, if I end up taking this fractal and then creping a fractal, I would want to choose one color to make it pop, to make the crepe yarn pop. If I really want to make the crepe yarn pop, I will do turquoise. If I want to keep the crepe yarn balanced and kind of mellowed out with the fractaled 2-ply, I will choose gray for it. But like I said, I haven't even decided if I want to crepe it. I'm kind of going a little crepe crazy, but if I think that something is missing from the 2-ply, I will crepe it. And these ones, the kettle dye I showed you guys, it's only 70 grams total, split into thirds. And I'm honestly, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. I was thinking of I'm doing an opposing ply right now, so I don't know what I would do this one with. I split it into 3s on impulse. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but this is going to be my next sample, my next sampler. So, with that said, we're going to move into the next segment, and I'm going to clear this fiber out and bring in everything else I'm going to talk about. Hey guys, so we are on to the book review section, and I actually have a two for you guys because these books are so very similar. So they both talk about different types of wool, different ways to process wool yourself from raw fleeces. They go over combing versus carding. Some of them even, like both of them have drum carders. They have very extensive drop spindle and wheel sections. They have different yarns you can make. This one has projects in it, but the projects are really gimpy. So I wouldn't even say that this one has a project section because you're probably not going to get anything out of that project section. You're going to find better stuff on Ravelry in the free section. So I wouldn't say bother with the projects in this one. Now, the projects in this one are actually DIY PVC pipe stuff. So she has a PVC pipe, a nitty-knotty spinning wheel even. She has a PVC pipe spinning wheel DIY picture-by-picture go-through, which if you're interested in doing that for the novelty of it, go for it. I wouldn't feel comfortable spinning with that and trying to do production spinning on one of those. So I'd rather not waste my time. But she has even like how to make your own light box for photography because, again, both of these books are so similar. A lot of their sections are the same to the point that they both talk about going commercial. This one I feel like is more about pricing your yarn for any market, whereas she breaks down vending, local yarn store. I think she talks about local yarn stores. But she definitely talks about online a lot. She talks about online a lot, whereas this was kind of not so much talking about online a lot. Very similar, but if you compare and contrast both of them and you're going through and you're reading both of them, you're going to get quite a lot out of it to where it's almost like you actually did read a real all-in-one book and not a tiny all-in-one book. And I think it's really cute that it calls itself the Complete Guide to Spinning Yarn. It really is a guide. It's not a full-blown textbook. So she talks about, her going commercial section is smaller. She talks about pricing and how to calculate your prices, how your websites should look, labeling stuff. She talks about doing competitions and accepting commissions, and that's it. I think this book actually talks about local yarn stores. It focuses a lot on vending, and it's a lot more pages. It's a lot more. She even talks about developing a brand. So this one, if you're thinking about going commercial at all, her section is way better, but this one talks more about how to price it. So I can't really say that one person's section was better, but if you already know how to price, but you want to know more about branding, vending, and online selling, this is your book. It's really, you got to figure it out, what your interests are more, because they are extremely similar. They came out a year apart, so this one was 2012 and this one was 2013. So they were like really back to back, and I'm not sure. Yeah, they're different. They're different publishing houses too. So it's not even like the publishing house. I am very confused that they're so similar to each other, but they're different books. It's almost like they were written by twins, if you can believe it or not. So. And the books, again, are The Complete Guide to Spinning Yarn by Brenda Gibson and The Spinning and Dyeing Yarn book by Ashley Martineu. They are extremely similar, but they're also, they really do go over just the basic guidelines of what you're going to need to know for spinning. After having read a lot of more specialized books, I consider these to be intro level, but really, there's tips here that any intermediate spinner might not know if they're not in a community of other spinners. So someone like me who's more of a loner because I don't know a lot of people who also spin, like in real life, I'm on forums most of the time. Both of these books, and reading both of these books, I gleaned different information from both of them. So if they're both in your library, I would definitely check both of them out since you have nothing to lose. If you're thinking about buying one or the other, see if you can get a hold of the table of contents of both of them and make your decision from the table of contents. On to my projects, which are just samples. This week's projects that I can show you are only samples. So I have this one here, and it's a little bit tangled. Just a little bit. Okay, so this is my other crepe. So the crepe that I did last week and showed you guys was a 2-ply crepe. This is actually a 3-ply crepe, and I Navajo plied it because it's mauve and purple stripes. So the crepe yarn is mauve and purple stripes, and the Navajo ply is mauve and purple stripes. It's very thick and thin, both of them, because I spun it really lazy on purpose because I wanted to see where it would look, how the 3-ply is much bigger than the single crepe ply, but I also wanted to see where certain spots they were the same size. So it looks like a really interesting 2-ply. It kind of tricks you into thinking it's a 2-ply. And just the different variations of yarn weight compared to the ply weight, the plied ply. This is so confusing. I just wanted to see how this would look at all kinds of different ranges, so I spun both of them very thick and thin just to see all the different combinations of creping that can happen when your crepe ply is changing size against your plied ply. So good Lord, I hope that made sense, because otherwise it would be super confusing. So again, a crepe yarn is a plied yarn plied with a single. So it's kind of like a cable, but not quite. My other projects this week, my other sample, this is going to be an opposing ply yarn. So I have these two already finished, these two, because it's a 3-ply. I broke them into thirds. These are both Z-twist and this one is S-twist, so whenever I apply them together S-twist, this is going to be over-twisted a lot, but that's actually going to make for a more durable yarn when you knit with it. So there's already a ton of spinners who have done kind of like projects over time, and they show you how their opposing 3-ply wore really well versus a traditional 3-ply, so I just figured I would do a sample of it and play with it myself and see the difference for myself. I don't need to verify that it's going to be thicker, or not thicker, oh my gosh, more durable. My brain right now is a little... I am almost completely done with this one, so I should have this completed by next podcast. Lastly, I'm going to go over acquisitions because I'm not one of those podcasters who buys new stuff every week. I don't think there are a lot of those podcasters out there, but it does seem to be a trend. I just don't spend that much money on my craft anymore since I have so much stuff built up already. There's always stuff that I want, but this is going to be a rare segment in the podcast. So, for my acquisitions, I have 3 acquisitions from Amazon. One is this lovely tripod that I am now using, as I'm sure you've noticed. The video quality is much better this go around. So I totally hope that this is much better for you guys as well. And I'm trying to sit here in the natural light so it's even better, especially since I did dyeing projects. I really, really needed this tripod. I actually ordered all of them yesterday. They were all Amazon Prime 1-day shipping, so that's great. I got the UB size tripod. That's just the brand that I went with from from Amazon. I also needed micro-sized measuring spoons. These micro-sized measuring spoons don't actually tell you how big the spoons are. I'm sure I could figure it out if I Googled it, but I decided to figure it out for myself using sugar and comparing it versus my half teaspoon that I've been using. And I think the sugar, I decided to use sugar because I felt like it would be, I could actually like put sugar in this, pour it into my half teaspoon, and compare the two. So after having done that, I'm guesstimating, but I'm pretty sure this is exactly what they are. Like, I'm 99.9% sure that these are the exact measurements. Half teaspoon, quarter teaspoon, eighth of a teaspoon, 1/16 of a teaspoon, and if we're following the pattern, so far this would be 1/32. Because I can't tell with my eyeball what a 1/32 is. What is labeled on these spoons, because all measuring spoons are going to come labeled, but these have kind of cutesy labels. They're definitely used for spicing food. Like, I guess some people don't know how to properly spice their food, so they need special things like this. So you have a tad, a dash, a pinch, a smidgen, and a drop. So if you imagine a Southerner's recipe, this totally looks like a manufacturer or a Northerner took a Southerner's recipe and decided to figure out what the exact measurement of a smidge was and quantify that in a spoon. I am very appreciative because it's going to make my dyeing process easier, but I just find it really funny that someone doesn't know how to spice food. But I'm definitely benefiting from someone. That is a really big housefly. Okay. Just flew through my door. Thank you, door. So, I just find it really funny that someone had to make spice spoons for people who don't know how to cook. I'm so sorry if you don't know how to spice anything or cook. I really don't mean to offend you. I just find it very funny because I am from the Gulf Coast and we spice everything and we know how to spice everything. So, super cute. Love them. Absolutely love them. They were about $5 on Amazon. There was a cheaper set that looked exactly like that, but they were not by the Norpro brand, and they would take forever to ship, and I needed them right now, so I was like, basically paying for proper shipping now. But buttons, I kind of needed these. I definitely didn't need as many of these, and I could have probably found something similar at Joann's, but I really just... I saw that I could get 50 for $6.50, so I was like, why not? So these are wood beads. They are extremely color neutral because they are wooden, so they can go with any project. They're 1-inch diameter buttons, and I need 6 or 8. Can't remember what. About 6 or 8 of these buttons for a specific project, and I can use these buttons on any project anytime, and I just really, really like the way these buttons look that I was like, I'll use 50 of them eventually. I know I will. So, ta-da, that's all my acquisitions. Now, I do have an update on an acquisition that I haven't received, but that I paid for a while back. Yes, I'm about to give you guys an update on the spinning wheel. So this update is not going to be, how do I say, like, super duper accurate. Like, I don't know when it's going to get here, but I do know that my wheel is the next one in line to be shipped out. I got a little bit upset with JMS Wheels because their Etsy profile says 3 to 4 weeks. Apparently that's not accurate and Etsy is lying, and it's not JMS Wheels who is lying. JMS Wheels, they keep trying to get their setting changed to 1 to 2 months or 1 to 3 months or something like that. And Etsy, while they have it as an option, will keep changing it under the table where customers who see it will see that it ships in 3 or 4 weeks. But the producer, the yarn shop, the Etsy shop, will see that they put that it takes 1 to 3 months. So Etsy's kind of doing weird shit. And They didn't explain that to me, but I read that in a Ravelry post that JMS Wheels wants to move away from Etsy because they keep doing that, and I definitely was like, where's my wheel? After 4 weeks, I was like, where is my wheel? And after I read that post, I was like, oh my god, I could be waiting 3 months. Holy shit. And I kind of just messaged them. I wasn't super... Anytime I feel like I'm not totally polite and just letting people walk all over me, I feel like I'm actually being a bitch, but that's just the trauma talking, basically, because, you know, like, when you grow up in domestic violence, you're not allowed to say no, you're not allowed to get angry, and you're not allowed to demand to be treated better. So I messaged him and was like, this is unacceptable. I can't wait this long. I'm trying to start my own business. Is there any way that I can get this wheel sooner? They messaged me back, no, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, I will fucking pay $50 more. I will fucking pay $70 more. I'm trying to start my own business. And they were like, oh, you're trying to start your own business. Okay. And I was like, what? Excuse me? I just kind of sort of threw a fit. Kind of, sort of, but like, because in my mind, anytime I'm not perfect, it's like I'm melodramatic. So if I'm a little bit of a bitch, I'm a total bitch in my mind. When other people are like, that wasn't actually too inappropriate, but I'm like, I was a total bitch. So I feel like I threw a fit, but they obviously didn't feel like I threw a fit. They were extremely understanding, and they were like, we know what it's like to try to start your own business. This is very stressful. We'll make sure your wheel is out next. And I was like, that's pretty awesome. Like, thank you. And they took an interest, and they were like, what kind of yarns are you planning to do? Like what is your plan? What different yarns? I told them all the different yarn ideas that I had, like doing the opposing ply, doing the crepes, doing all kinds of cool stuff that you don't usually see. There's a lot of 2-plies on Etsy right now, which I feel like are the easiest to make. And of course, a lot of my yarns are going to be 2-plies, but I also want to make available for knitters opposing ply yarns, hawser plied yarns, crepe yarns. These yarns, because they would be so expensive to put on the market, are not available to non-spinning knitters, and I kind of want to make these yarns available to non-spinning knitters. I think that'd be really cool. So I've done a lot of thinking on this Etsy shop, and I'm ready to just jump in with both feet and have my build up stock and have it open by September. So knowing that my wheel is next to be shipped out and that I will get some kind of notification that it has shipped either at the end of this week or the beginning of next week is like, finally, like I can start building up that stock. I can get used to my wheel and just production spin all the shit that I want to have in my shop. So exciting stuff. And so I hope to have a lot of skeins to show you guys, and hopefully finals won't be too intense and I will still get to do that. I do have quite a few papers on the horizon that I'm not looking forward to, so we will see how all of that plays out. And even then, I set myself to September, so that's a pretty good goal. I will have all of summer. I need to find a job, though. Not going to think about it. I hope that you really enjoyed this week's podcast, and that maybe seeing my dye mistakes helped you out. I hope that my book review, as non-extensive as it usually is, was still super helpful to you guys. And I'm serious now. Y'all need to check y'all's libraries for spinning books. And all the other good stuff I usually say at the end of these things. Happy crafting, and bye-bye.